There is a 3,600-year-old scroll sitting at the New York Academy of Medicine, and it contains a recipe with a title that should not exist in ancient history. It's literally called Transforming an Old Man into a Youth. Not smoother skin, not fewer wrinkles, a youth. And the strangest part? Modern chemists who studied the ingredients say the ancient Egyptians may have accidentally been right. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what was in that jar, why Cleopatra's most famous beauty ritual probably never happened the way you think, and why the real Egyptian secret to eternal youth had almost nothing to do with skincare at all. Welcome to ancient Egypt, a civilization so obsessed with staying young and beautiful that they built an entire industry around it thousands of years before anti-aging was a marketing word. This isn't going to be the version of the story you've heard 100 times with milk baths and gold masks. We're going deeper into an actual medical document, into some genuinely strange chemistry, and into a belief system that reframes what eternal youth even meant to these people. Let's start with the scroll that I mentioned before. It's called the Edwin Smith Papyrus, dated to roughly 1600 BCE, and it's one of the oldest surgical texts ever discovered. It's over 4 meters long and contains detailed case studies for everything from head trauma to spinal injuries. Tucked on the back of all of that is the recipe that caught researchers off guard. The main ingredient is called hemayet. For decades, Egyptologists translated it as bitter almonds. Here's where it gets interesting. The instructions for preparing hemayet are absurdly complicated for a simple ingredient. It has to be husked, winnowed, sifted, boiled in water, dried, washed, ground into powder, and then boiled again. That is not how you prepare something for eating. That is how you extract a specific compound. When modern researchers looked closely at the process, they realized the Egyptians may have unknowingly been isolating a chemical that tightens and firms skin, similar to compounds used in dermatology labs today. In other words, 3,500 years before retinol existed, Egyptian physicians may have stumbled onto an actual working formula through pure trial and error. Keep that in mind because it connects to something bigger later. A different scroll, the Ebers Papyrus, has a separate treatment specifically for wrinkles, and this one is far less mysterious. It calls for a wax-based paste combining frankincense gum, moringa oil, ground cypress grass, and a viscous plant juice. Break that down and it actually holds up. Frankincense resin has natural anti-inflammatory compounds. Moringa oil is loaded with antioxidants. And the plant juice would have acted as a mild acid, similar in function to the exfoliating acids in modern chemical peels. The Egyptians didn't have a word for AHA acid, but they were functionally using one. Now, the name everyone associates with Egyptian beauty, Cleopatra. Here's the twist, though. The most famous story about her, that she bathed in the milk of 700 donkeys to preserve her skin, doesn't come from an eyewitness or an Egyptian source at all. This story actually comes from a Roman-era writer describing the Emperor Nero's wife using 500 donkeys, which later became a myth attached to Cleopatra. What's actually documented, and far more interesting, is her broader routine. While modern myths claim she used a golden mask overnight, the real gold masks were reserved strictly for the dead. Instead, honey served as her moisturizer for its natural antibacterial and hydrating qualities. Olive oil kept her skin and hair conditioned in Egypt's brutal dry heat. And when it came to exfoliation, Dead Sea salts and Nile mud masks were used to strip away dead skin and pull out impurities from the pores. Even her signature look, the sharp winged Kohl eyeliner, wasn't just about vanity. Kohl was made primarily from galena, a lead-based material sometimes mixed with malachite, for that green-black tint. On the surface, it looks purely decorative. But functionally, it did two things. It cut down glare from the relentless Egyptian sun, acting almost like ancient sunglasses, and it had antimicrobial properties that helped protect the eyes from infections and irritation caused by sand, wind, and disease-carrying flies along the Nile. So the eyeliner wasn't just a beauty statement, it was preventative medicine wearing the disguise of fashion. This is the pattern you'll start to notice with almost everything the Egyptians did for their appearance. Beauty and survival were never separate categories to them. And that brings us back to the beginning of the video, to that scroll and to the actual answer this video promised you. The real Egyptian secret to eternal youth was never about a jar of cream or a bath of milk. It was a belief system. Egyptians didn't chase youth for this life. They engineered an entire civilization around preserving the body forever for the next one. And that's why mummification existed. The body was dried using natron salt, wrapped and treated with resins specifically so it would never decay, because they believed the soul needed an intact, recognizable body to return to in the afterlife. Youth wasn't something you fought to keep while alive, it was something you preserved for eternity after death. The Ankh symbol, carved into temples and tombs everywhere, represented exactly that idea. Life without end, and the myth of Osiris, a god who died and was resurrected, wasn't just a story, it was the blueprint every Egyptian hoped their own body and soul would follow. So that wrinkle cream, that gold mask, that Kohl eyeliner, all of it was a smaller reflection of a much bigger obsession. The Egyptians weren't trying to cheat aging, they were trying to make sure that whatever happened to their body in this life, or the next one, it would last forever. It's strange to think that a civilization this focused on the afterlife left behind so many clues about how they actually lived, right down to the ingredients in their skincare jars. If there's one thing history keeps proving, it's that the smallest details, a recipe, a smear of eyeliner, a mask made of gold, can tell you more about a culture's deepest fears and beliefs than any monument ever could. If this pulled you in, make sure to hit subscribe, because there's a lot more hiding in the corners of history that most people never hear about. Drop a comment and let me know which part of this surprised you the most, and if you want to know what strange buried piece of the past I'm digging up next, you're just going to have to wait and see.